Had it been a series, because now, we, as a society, we've moved a little bit away from movies and we're more towards series, because they're longer, like on Netflix or Prime or whatever. So had it been a series, do you think that they would have been able to regulate that or change it?
Yeah, probably. I think it probably would have it would have definitely been a lot more close and a lot more debatable whether or not it was, it definitely needed to close more and like endorse its advertisements more. So, I don't really know. You'd have to look deeper into it.
So, right, so, well, that's in a specific case. So do you think it would, generally speaking, would it be good for the FCC to regulate the internet or our cable, either one, or not?
I said,
Not
yeah, no. I don't think it would be.
No?
the internet.
Go ahead.
So like the internet, like that's gonna involve streaming, like podcasts,
Mhm.
books,
Right.
YouTubers, and stuff like that. Stuff like that.
So you're saying that okay, well, let me ask you that, okay, and that's a good, valid point, I agree. Being a free enterprise guy, I don't like the government to get involved in any more than it has to. I just don't. I think that it suppresses innovation, it adds red tape, it slows down progress, all the rest of it. It can even eat into profits, it increases taxes, therefore that's less money for workers to make and all the rest of it, right? However, if, and this is very controversial, but it happened recently, Twitter banned for life the President of the United States from being able to use their service and get word out. Now, it doesn't matter if you agree or disagree with the content of what was said. Does the idea that they can just ban people whenever they choose to, with no explanation, and having no set of criteria that's equal, where other people have said things more inflammatory, but frankly don't comport with, or do comport with their particular worldview, people they disagree with, they ban, and we're in a cancel culture mode right now. So, I can argue both sides of this argument, and I want you guys to do the same thing, because there's pro and con. Like, okay, Twitter on the one hand, I'll just put this out there as a private company, they can do whatever they want,
Yeah.
right? They're a private enterprise. It's their product. If they decide that they want their product to be A as opposed to B, that's their call to make. On the other hand, are they a provider of a platform in society just like television or radio? And I'll tell you why there is that side of it. A few years ago, the FCC required companies to be limited in the number of radio and television stations they could own and or operate. It was called the 777 rule. And so as a company, you could only own 7 AM, 7 FM, and 7 television stations. And that was it, that was the limit. So even the big networks, CBS, NBC, ABC, could only own 7. Now they could be a network that could be carried on other carriers owned by other people, but they could only own 7. It loosened up a little bit, and I think it went to 14. I went to work for ABC when they could own, no, it was still 777 rule when I worked for them, or it was just changing to the 14 rule. The reason that they limited people to be able to only own, and they're also cross ownership of newspapers and radio were not allowed, only a certain amount, or television. And the reason for that was so that nobody could control the news and the share of voice in America. So that way, the First Amendment calls for a free press, right? Well, the FCC says, okay, to ensure that we have a free press, we need a lot of different operators with a lot of diversity in their line of thinking and political persuasion, right? Because if 1 or 2 people own it, then they're going to control the thought the news and the content in America.
Yeah, Joanna did a documentary. Would you, in lieu of what he's saying, could you explain what your documentary was and how, in hindsight, it would make more sense to have not as many people owning all the different companies? Do you understand that question?
I'm not sure if it like directly applies to that, but it was the War of the Worlds broadcast by Orson Welles, where basically he panicked the entire nation that there was, although there are some debates on whether he really did, whether there were as many people who actually believed him or not, but so the FCC, they had to get into that, and they basically made a rule. I forgot what it was exactly, but
Well, there were a lot of people in New York and New Jersey who believed it was true,
Right.
because it caused a lot of panic in that part of the country. There were people all across America that
And
believed it. We
something
don't know
that
how
Joanna
many.
was saying was that we can see in hindsight, but the new theory about that, which is different than when I was in school, is that there were newspapers supporting the fact that it was, really, that it was more like they really are here. I don't remember exactly how it was.
Yeah, there was, I guess you could say, newspapers were trying to create, like, they had propaganda, because they had, beef with radio stations, because,
Sure.
yeah, because, so, they tried to, make the story more than it actually was, so that, to kind of press a tag onto radio stations.
Okay, so sensationalism in that case,
Yeah.
and false advertising kind of
Yeah.
go hand in hand. We have to have truth in advertising and truth in content, correct? The FCC was responsible for making sure, or trying to reasonably be sure, that that would happen, at least to a point. Does that happen anymore on Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Snapchat? It's kind of like the Wild West in many ways, right?
Because if you get,
Not
if you get
regulated.
censored, it's by the company, it's not usually by the, it's.
Correct, but if that company is the one who is the platform that almost all of the nation in the hundreds of millions, in other words, they're controlling the public square.
Yes,
And that didn't used to happen just a few short years ago, and now it does. So we're entering a brave new world
yes,
here.
because everybody's carrying these around with them.
Correct.
You also have to remember that whenever you sign up for something, you're agreeing to their terms and conditions at the beginning.
Yes, the EULA that nobody reads at the beginning, that's the, the big long, 18 pages long, full of legalese, that people don't read and just go click, yes, I want to use it. That's a valid point. People don't really know what they're getting into. And now there's a lawsuit saying that those things are ridiculous. Now, I think they'll lose it because, you're informing people. And in a free enterprise system, have you ever heard the term caveat emptor? That means buyer beware, right? It's up to you to know what you're getting into, in other words. You have a responsibility to do that. We can't be spoon-fed by an entity or a government or a company on every level for everything. It's just not, society isn't going to work that way. So with a free society, there's a lot of responsibility to know what in the heck you're getting into or what you're doing, right? I believe people have a right to be stupid. But there are other people that don't think they have that right because it can affect other people. All right, I'm going to leave you with that. We can pick this up next.